Hello, everyone on Patreon. Thanks again so much for your ongoing support. I hope that you're enjoying all of the content available exclusively to my Patreon members, and that you're also enjoying all the content that I've been putting up on either YouTube or in the audio version of Robert Bellissimo at the movies. Today is Directors Movies Ranked video for July 2021, and the winner is, drumroll please, Alfred Hitchcock 1950s. We're going to be focusing on what my favorite. It's very hard to say what's better, but I'm going to focus on what my favorites are, least favorite to favorite from Hitchcock in the 1950s. So here we go. I must say off the top, I have not seen Stage Fright, so I'm going to not include that. But my least favorite, and I've only seen it once, and it's been quite a while since I've seen it, but I'm gonna have to say To Catch a Thief. Now, then again, I may watch it again and like it a lot more. What I remember, as much as I love Cary Grant and Grace Kelly, what I remember about it is it just being a little too light for my taste. So I'm going to put that as my least favorite, although I definitely will give it another chance. Every time I think about it, I always think I don't really want to watch To Catch a Thief, but I will revisit it. After that, it's a tough one because it's a great decade for him. I'm going to say The Man Who Knew Too Much. Again, another one I have to revisit. I really like the original from 1934, which I reviewed not too long ago with Joel Guns, the Alfred Hitchcock geek. So as much as I love Stewart, I really like Doris Day. I don't really love the story. I think it's a good story. I like what Hitchcock did with it. It's really about saving your daughter, really proving how much you love someone who perhaps you weren't fair to, which is what we really see in the original. A lot of people say the remake was better. He made the remake because as Hitchcock put it, the remake is by a professional. The original is from a really good amateur. That's so we know which one he preferred. But another one I have to see again. I'm gonna put that one as my number 2 in terms of least favorite. After that, North by Northwest certainly is a lot of fun. I think the performances are extraordinary from Ava Marie Saint in particular. I mean, that scene where, it's so interesting how they got around the code back then, the Hays Code, which was very, very tight in terms of what you can say and show in movies. It's a very erotic scene. They're talking openly about sex, but it's so coded. But it's so implied, and it's so much in their behavior, the way in which they're looking at each other. Hitchcock being such a visual director, telling his story always primarily from a place of how can he do this visually, how can he express it emotionally from what the characters are going through and what the story is on a visual level rather than dialogue. It's just sublime. I just think it's such a fantastic, almost like a sex scene to me. I mean, it's just phenomenal. So Eva Marie Saint and Cary Grant are so great in this. The entire cast is fantastic, but it's a lot of fun. Again, we see what we had seen in something like the 39 Steps. A man who, again, wrong place, wrong time, says the wrong thing, and he's on the run the entire film. He's funny and he's highly resourceful in order to get out of this real bind that he's in. This is another film I reviewed earlier this year when I was still working with Steve Chambers. If you haven't seen it, I will leave the link in the description box below where you can check that one out. It's going to be a coin toss, really, between I Confess and Strangers on a Train. A lot of what I admire about Strangers on a Train is we reviewed it on the channel as part of the very first Hitchcock video we did. I did with Aaron Pin, and back when Steve Chambers was my co-host, looking at his more underrated films. What I admire so much about it is his use, which he uses in all of his movies, but his use of metaphors, the crisscross on the train, the beautiful way in which they meet, where you only see their feet until they hit the train, both Bruno and the lead character. they cross their legs and their feet hit, and life is never the same for either one of them. And his use of POV, his use of metaphors, and of course his use of contrast, having murders take place in settings we can all find ourselves in. In this case, it's at like a circus, in a merry-go-round, and playgrounds and stuff like that. It makes it even scarier. Certainly his sadistic humor comes out in that. Bruno is there's a lot of black humor. He openly talks about how he would murder someone at like dinner parties and stuff like that. But there's a lot of really great visual things Hitchcock did. For example, again with the use of POV, when the lead character is Farley Granger is watching the tennis match, and everyone's head is going side to side to side as the balls go back and forth. And then the only one who is not going side to side is Bruno, as he just stares at Farley Granger, and the camera zooms in on him. So it's a really, really good film. It's hard for me to separate that, and I confess, I'm going to put that almost as a tie, because I really love Montgomery Clift. He gave such a great performance. I have this. I've seen it a few times. Another film I have to revisit, but that's if you just want to see, a fantastic performance. Of course, themes of guilt, religious guilt, a priest who refuses to tell people about the confession that a murderer gave him. It's really interesting in terms of morals and guilt. It's another film I have to see again. It's not one of my favorites, but it's just Clift alone. I just love Montgomery Clift. So I'm gonna put those two in a tie. Trouble with Harry, I just saw for the second time. I reviewed it again with Joel Guns. We were looking at his Hitchcocks. What a wonderful film. I really love, and I didn't realize this because everyone is so indifferent and accepting of the trouble that they're in with Harry getting killed and who killed Harry and stuff like that. And it's very funny. The black humor is fantastic, but he was saying that's a very, Christian, Buddhist way of looking at life, that no matter what happens, you're accepting of it. You're not getting upset, that you can't predict anything that's going to happen in life, so therefore you can't control it, therefore you may as well accept it. And everyone in the film accepts everything that happens, and no one gets worked up, and it makes it funny. So if you haven't seen it, I will leave the link below where you can watch the review I did with Joel Guns, because I think it's really an excellent film, beautifully shot as well, and incredible performances.
After that, I'd have to go with Dial M for Murder, which is a real one of my favorites from Hitchcock. I just think it's so much fun, so clever, so witty, to see how Ray Milland will get caught for trying to kill his wife, played by Grace Kelly. And it's amazing what Hitchcock can do in one location. I love his one location movies like Lifeboat and Rope, Rear Window, movies like that. So Dial M for Murder, certainly.
Rear Window, I would say, certainly a great film. Another one I've done so many Hitchcock. Another film that I reviewed with Steve Chambers' fiance Jessica. She really made me see how much deeper the film is. I always thought it was a real fun suspense film, but there's a lot of themes there that that really went over my head in the past. But extraordinary film. If you haven't seen it, I will put the link below to the review I did with Jessica in the description box. It's a fantastic movie. Jimmy Stewart is great. Grace Kelly is fantastic, and I again, he says so much in his visuals. Off the top, we see a guy in a cast. Okay, he broke his leg. A broken camera. Pictures, photography. He's a photographer, so he's always looking for visual ways of telling the story, putting the dialogue secondary to how can we tell this story where we're visually telling it, which is what people call pure cinema from the silent era. After that, certainly, this is a tough one. This is a tough one because the two I have left here are Vertigo and The Wrong Man, which are two movies I love, two that I've also reviewed, put the links in the description box below. I'm gonna have to say that my favorite is Vertigo and my second favorite is The Wrong Man. I could change my mind tomorrow. But I think the complexity that is brought to Vertigo in terms of love and death and who do we really fall in love with? Are we falling in love with looks or the person? And if we fall in love with the person, how do you sustain that love? I think there's a lot of complexities and the darker natures of oneself and love and death is fantastic in it. Kim Novak, the entire cast. It's a really, really good movie. And yeah, I would say that's my favorite from the 50s. I will put the link in the description box below for Wrong Man and Vertigo if you haven't seen them before, and all the other ones. But that is how I would rank it. I apologize that some of the films I haven't seen in quite some time, so I'm really going on my instinct as to how interested I am in it, in seeing them again. So I was sort of ranking it that way, but I have a lot of passion for Wrong Man, Vertigo, Rear Window. I think those are some of Hitchcock's best films, certainly Trouble with Harry as well. I learned a lot talking to Joel about these movies. So again, if you haven't seen it, my reviews with Joel, the links are in the description box below. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. And thanks again for your ongoing support on Patreon. I will be posting more very, very soon. And I will see you all soon. Thanks so much. Take care.